Hello, and welcome back to Physics Teacher. In my previous episode, I showed you some very important skills in Microsoft Word that could also be used in Google Docs in science. In today's episode, I'm going to go over important skills in science from Microsoft Excel, which will work in Sheets as well. So stay tuned. Alright, so we're back, and I've already got some data. So let's say I have an experiment here, and I've got some time data and the position of two objects. And what we're going to do is manipulate this data. The first thing is, how do you put equations into Excel? Right? To calculate the speed, we know the speed is just change in position over a time interval. But if you have, in this case, 17 pieces of data, you could have other experiments that have hundreds or thousands of pieces of data. You do not want to have to calculate each one separately yourself and then one at a time plug it into Excel. That is a waste of time. So what we're going to do is have Excel do the work for us. So if we type equals, that automatically means it's going to calculate something. Then you can do anything what you like. You can do 5 plus 5. There you go. It's 10. You can do 8 minus 3. Right, or 10 times 2, right? Or division would be 10 divided by 2. Right? You can also do the square root, that is SQRT of 4. Whoops, I put in an underscore. Of 4, and there you go. Right? You can also do exponents. If you want to do an exponent, you would do equal to 4 to the exponent of 2. Right? And you can do cubic roots and square roots with exponents as well. You would do equals 4 to the power of, and then in brackets 1 divided by 2. So that's the square root of 4. There you go. One last thing I'll show you is you can do a sine. Right? If you do the sine of 30, it'll give you that. So that's important to know. Whenever you punch in the sine of 30 into Excel, it calculates it in radians, not degrees. If you want to do it in degrees, you will have to type in the sine and then type radians of 30. And that changes 30 from radians into degrees. Okay. Now I do have a guide, a handout that I created, and you can go to my website. If you want to download that, it's free. It's at youtubephysicsteacher.ca, all one word. All right, so let's look at this equation. The speed of object 1. Well, a speed is just change in position. So I'm going to write its position later, 0.1 seconds later compared to now. So we're going to put in this cell, B3, and I'm going to subtract B2. That's automatically going to find the change in position. Okay, but speed is change in position in time, so I'm going to divide that by the time interval, which would be the difference between A3 and A2, like that. There you go. There's the speed. Now, I don't want to type this in over and over. You can do copy and paste, but there's a faster way. There's a little tiny square at the bottom right of this cell when I have it selected, and if I click on it and just drag that down and let go of the mouse, it does it for me. Right? And you'll notice right here, this is now B4 minus B3. The next one, B5 minus B4. The next one, B6 minus B5. So it calculates it by going up one cell every time you move it down. Right? So that's great. This last one we don't need because it's calculating, say, B19, and B19 I haven't put in an entry. So you can see here, this is an example of moving at a constant speed. All right, let's do the same thing for object 2. So, all right, equals, and we'll do C3 minus C2, and divide that by the time interval A3 in brackets A3 minus A2. Okay, and we will copy it for every single cell going downwards. Now, this one's an increasing speed, so that one's accelerating. That's the first thing that's good to know, that's going to save you a lot of time. Next, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to graph this. So let's start with just a graph of a position time graph for object 1. So I'm going to highlight the time and position columns, and then I am just going to go to Insert, and we're going to do a scatter plot. Okay, and there it is. Now, obviously, if you're doing a lab report, you can't hand this in. Your teacher is not going to be happy. You have no title. Your axes aren't labeled. This isn't good. Right? You don't even have a trend line in there. So let's do that. I'm going to show you how to do that. So we're going to go up here under the design for your chart. You're going to go to Add Chart Element. And we can do a chart title. So let's click on the title. You can place it over, on top, or if you want, just don't have one. I wouldn't recommend not having one though. Okay, so we got our chart title, and we're going to change it. I'm going to just call it a position time graph for object 1. There's the title. All right, I want axes too, so add chart element. We're going to go to axes title. So we're going to want one for x-axis and one for vertical y-axis. And then I can put in here time in seconds and position in, what do I have, meters. If you want a vector, you can add a direction as well, east. All right, what about trend line, right? We want a nice linear fit there. So let's go to Add Chart Elements. We're going to do a trend line. We're going to select a linear trend line. Okay. I always like going to more options though. And that sort of brings up options at the side here. All right, so here are our options. And we're going to go up here and click on our trend line options. I'm going to choose a linear fit. And what I also want to do is display the equation. So now I have the equation of that linear fit. And if you click right, you can move it to wherever you'd like it to be. Right, and that automatically tells me what the slope is. So I didn't actually have to do all the calculations for speed. The slope of that line, the slope of a position time graph, is your speed or velocity. And it tells me right here in our y equals mx plus b, it's 1.5 meters per second. Okay, so I'm going to delete this one. And I'm going to show you how to do another one. Let's say I wanted to do time versus the speed of object 2. Now these are not right next to each other. So what you can do is highlight one and then hold down Control on your keyboard as you highlight the other one. And then I'm going to go Insert, and again a scatter plot. Alright, so we have another linear one. But this is a velocity time graph. So let me change the title. I'm going to do velocity time graph. And again, you can put in y-axes and x-axes. I've already shown you that. So instead, I'm going to show you something else. And that is error bars. Okay, error bars are very important. You may not do them so much in high school. I introduced them, but it's more of something that you do in university. Right? In high school, though, you're always asking in your lab reports, like, what error was involved here, right? Because no lab is perfect, right? There could be error in your reaction time. If this is measuring the speed of an object falling at a certain instant in time, reaction time could be a huge error, right? And so there are ways to calculate errors. And so what we're going to do is add error bars. And I'm going to click on More Error Bars Options. So you can see it already put in some standard error bars for me, but I don't want those standard error bars. You can see I've calculated my own error. And if you're interested in how to calculate error and methods of calculating errors, I put a link to one of my 12U physics lectures where I teach you a little bit. But if you want more information, let me know in the comments and I'll make a couple of video series on calculating errors in labs. But for this one, we have horizontal error bars. Now let's say I don't want the horizontal ones. Let's say my time is perfectly fine. Over here I've only calculated error in speed. So I'll just click on the horizontal ones, and I'll go to error bar options, and I can just put a fixed value there, 0. I don't want them. There, they're gone. Alright, let's select our vertical error bars then. Now I don't want a fixed value. If you do want a fixed value, if all your error is the same for every single measurement, then you could put in a fixed value or a percentage. But since I've calculated my own here, I'm going to go to custom. And I'm going to specify that value. And then I'm just going to go over here and click and drag. These are the values that I want. And that's my positive error. But usually your error is plus or minus. It can go either way. If you make a measurement of something and you say it's 2.5 meters, but maybe it might be a little more than that. Maybe it might be a little less than that. So you have that plus or minus. So I'm going to do the same for the negative error. I'm going to put that in. And I'll click OK. And there we go. Now we have different error bars of different sizes. Some are bigger, some are smaller. Obviously this is a great graph because most of the error bars are quite small. But if you had larger errors, then you would see them just like this one, right? Which is a great visual. And then again, you can put in your trend line. Add trend line. Looks like another linear one. Like that. And then you can also display that on the chart. Display equation on chart. And this is obviously, look, the acceleration is 9.8. So this is something that's falling. That's in free fall. Alright, let's move on to the next example. I'm going to teach you a couple more important skills. So the next example I have set up here. Now, the formatting here is terrible, right? Diameter, you can't see it. If you click on it, you can see diameter of a circle. Okay, radius of a circle. But if this is something I want to print, I want to clean this up a bit, right? Or it could be something I want to cut and paste into Word and print from there. Again, I still want to clean it up a bit. So how are we going to clean this up a bit? So what we're going to do is we're going to click on that cell, and under your home ribbon, you're going to click on wrap text. And then it immediately changes the size of your cell to do that. And then you have some options. If you want to center it, have it at the bottom, have it at the top, that's your choice. You can move it around to clean it up. We can do the same for these. Wrap text. I'll put it at the top and center it. That's what I like. Wrap text at the top. And oh, this one. Wrap text at the top. Center. Alright. There you go. Now it does cut off the word here, so if you wanted, you can just click and make that cell a little bit bigger. Next thing is, let's say we're going to put in an equation. So this is diameter circle. The radius of a circle is then simply equal to the diameter divided by 2. So we're going to do equals to A2 divided by 2. There's the diameter. And just as I showed you before, click and drag. But let's say I wanted to show what equation I was using to do that calculations. If you're writing a lab report, you have to do that. You can't just say, this is magically what it is. And now for the radius of a circle, it's kind of obvious what we're doing here, but in a lot of cases, it's not. So how do I put an equation to actually view on Excel? Well, how we're going to do that is going to click Insert. And over here, I'm going to insert an equation. Alright, and then we can type our equation here. So this is diameter equals, or no, we did radius. So radius equals diameter divided by 2. And you use the same keyboard tricks I taught you in the previous episode with word skills. Now it's important to note, this is just an image that we've placed. It's not assigned to any cell. I can move it anywhere I want here. So I'm just going to put it right here. And then when I print it, it will appear there. So that's very useful. If you're going to copy and paste things into Word before printing, then you don't need to do this. You can actually type the equation when it's in Word. But if you wanted to print your sheet straight from Excel, this is a way you can actually do that. Same with circumference of a circle. The circumference is just 2 pi r. Now how you're going to type pi is you'll do 2 times, the function for pi is pi, and then since it's a function we just do open and close brackets. And then multiply that by r, which is b2. So there's the circumference. And then what we can do here is just, again, like I showed you before, click the corner and drag it down, and it does it for every single one. And if I wanted to place in the equation, I'll go back to Insert, Equation, and just like before, this is circumference equals 2 pi r. And then I can put that right here where I want it. So now the formatting is a lot nicer than what it was when I first showed it to you. Okay, so a couple more things. Now, those are a lot of digits in for circumference. Let's say I don't want that many digits. Well, I'm going to show you how to round then. So to round by something, let's just select all the things we want to round. And then up here in our home ribbon, we can change things. We can change it to a whole bunch of things here. I don't want to change that though, I just want to round. So right here, it says increase or decrease decimal. So I'm going to decrease that decimal. You can see it's decreasing it and rounding it for me. Like that. So much, much nicer. Now, if I wanted to, I could plot a graph. I can do diameter of a circle versus circumference. So again, hold Control, click, drag, and we're going to insert, again, a scatter plot, just like that. Now the last thing I'm going to show you is, for example, what if you insert your scatter plot and then you realize, I want my y-axis down here on the horizontal and the x-axis over here on the vertical. It switched my axis. What do? How do I fix that? So this is the last thing I'm going to show you today, is how to switch those axes so that it's right. And you should always check. So what we can do is we can go to an axis. We can double click on our axis. And there's lots of things you can do over here under axis options. You can change the bounds. So if I didn't want it going from 0 to 12, I wanted it going from 0 to 4 or something, I can change that, which is essentially zooming in or zooming out of your graph. Okay. I can also add, if I right click, I can change the grid lines. I can add more grid lines. I can format the grid lines, format the axis. There's lots of things you can do here. I suggest you play with that. But what we're going to do is we're going to switch the axis. So I'm going to go to Select Data. All right, so here's our data. It's showing us the data. What you don't want to do is click Switch Row Column. That is not how you switch the axis. That gives you something horrible. So don't click that. So this here shows our data range, right, for our x-axis going from A2 to A11 and our y-axis going from C2 to 11. But what we want to do is switch. So what we're going to do is click on Edit. And see here are our x values going from A2 to A11. So I'm just going to delete that, and instead I'm going to highlight C2 to C11. I'm going to have to do the same thing for the y values. I'll switch that to A2 to A11. And there you go. Click OK. You're done. You've switched your axes. So I hope that video helped. Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time.